Okay, so after my last video reviewing the Path of Titans community servers got way more views than I expected, and brought in a lot of new subscribers, I felt like a follow-up video was needed. So starting off, I'm not going to showcase every single server or actively play on all of them. Some of that is because I'm banned from a few of them for one reason or another. Usually that comes down to me being very outspoken. I say things like, shit, fuck, goddammit, motherfucker, and whatever else. If I think a rule is stupid, I say it's stupid. Simple as that. If that comes off as rude, in my opinion, that's a you problem. I'm just blunt and straight to the point. First, I'm going to list all of the servers I have not played on. Those are the Brazil survival servers, Tales of Riparia, Iowa Haven, DLK Officials, Isla Nigta, Lost Exiles, Bird News Network, Crown of Scales, Jurassic Isle, Jurassic Island, Wildwood, Lazarus Point Realism, Pure Chaos, and Jurassic Hub. Along with that, pretty much everything on pages 3 and 4, except for one server on page 4, which we'll get into later. Once you reach page 3, you start getting into very underpopulated servers, so there's not much activity there most of the time. Now, let's get into the good servers before we touch any drama. I've played Lonely Isle, and it's a solid server. They have teleports, which is great if you like fast travel, and when you do teleport, you're placed into a safe box so you're not thrown into danger. It's a 5x growth server with 300x marks, which makes it very easy to reach adult, unlock skins, adjust your abilities, and get straight into gameplay. It's a PvP-focused server that works well for both new and experienced players, and best of all, it has very few rules. But while I do like the server, one thing that seriously annoys me is the random baby invites. Sometimes they get spammed to the point where you have to block the person sending them. I get that these are probably new players learning the game, but after a while, you should understand how things work and know not to spam invites like that. Next is Apex Killers. This is a server I personally like, but before I give it praise, it does have the fucking body down rule. You also can't third party, revenge kill, or target players repeatedly, meaning you can't focus the same person over and over, which is personally fine by me, I don't know about you. This makes it more of a controlled PvP environment, so it's better suited for players who want a bit of a safety net rather than complete chaos. The server includes teleports, which helps a lot since, let's be honest, the only two places anyone really goes are Grand Plains and Green Valley. One of the biggest positives for me is the stamina system. Stamina drains slower when sprinting or flying, and regeneration is significantly increased for all dinosaurs. That change alone makes movement in combat feel much smoother and less punishing. Now, to keep this video from dragging on too long, I'm going to quickly go over some other servers that are trustworthy and worth checking out. All servers labeled PvP no rules are solid options if you want a no rules PvP experience. They feel similar to official servers, but with much faster growth, so you can get into the action quicker. Evergreen Garden is a solid semi-realism server with reasonable rules. It does have that fucking body down rule, which some people and myself don't like, and it has a slightly increased growth rate, though it's not clearly specified. Hell's Realm is probably one of the most straightforward PvP servers out there. It uses a custom map and includes a variety of mods, including some newer ones. It has essentially 0 rules, aside from a few designated zones for 1v1 fights and arena-style matches. For players who want faster growth combined with semi-realism and a smaller, more manageable rule set, the DB Realm servers are a strong option. You don't need to do quests, since they don't impact your growth speed. Your dinosaur grows automatically at a steady rate, similar to completing quests or discovering locations. On top of that, stamina regeneration is very fast, while drain rates stay normal based on your dinosaur. Now, let's get into the drama. I'm going to say this exactly how I saw it and how I've experienced it. These are the servers you don't want to waste your time on. I'm not sorry if you're listening to this and your server happens to be on my shit list. That's exactly why I made this video. Every single server I'm about to list and explain either does not allow recommendations at all, or if they do, they treat them like fucking toilet paper. So let's get into it. Starting off, let's talk about the server everyone already knows is full of total fucking degenerates. Yes, this is the server with the cuddle piles, the LGBTQ Pride flag skins, which are now called Color Party, but used to be called LOA Pride. You can see I have a lot of dinosaurs and creatures on this server. While I despise it now, I did use it in the past. I mainly used it for testing, and honestly, for messing with cuddle piles, until I found better servers like Lonely Isle and the DB Realm servers. One of my favorite things to do was go in as a hats and push people off cliffs. At some point, they disabled fall damage, so now you can still push people, but they won't die from it, which is really fucking stupid. Part of me thinks they specifically changed that because of people like me doing that, but it is what it is. I don't play there anymore, especially when there are far better servers that aren't filled with that kind of behavior. Next is Ellis Astra Fantasy Semi-Realism. This server is full of crybaby idiots who will 8 versus 1 you, then go into global chat and say things like, GG, so easy, like they just pulled off something impressive. That's not skill. That's just numbers. It's cheap, and everyone knows it. And the moment you push back, or give any kind of backlash for the shit talk they throw at you, the admins step in and warn you instead of the people who started it. There's a clear bias toward their regulars, and it shows. It turns the entire experience into a one-sided mess, where certain players can do whatever they want, while others get punished for reacting. NatHist is, in my opinion, a dogshit historical server with growth rates that feel exactly like the Isle. People came to Path of Titans to get away from that slow, grind-heavy experience, not to load into a server that copies it almost one-to-one. You spend way too much time doing nothing but waiting to grow, and if you die, you're right back to square one with hours wasted. It turns the game into a chore instead of something you can actually enjoy. There's a difference between realism and just dragging everything out to the point where it becomes tedious, and this server leans way too far into the tedious side. On top of that, like a lot of realism servers, it also comes with massive rule lists and dinosaur profiles you are forced to read before you can even properly play. These profiles don't just explain the dinosaur, they add even more rules on top of the server rules themselves. So instead of just playing, you end up spending about 15 to 30 minutes, depending on your reading speed and how comfortable you are with English, just trying to understand what you're even allowed to do. And even after that, you're still not fully free, because each dinosaur has its own specific restrictions layered on top. In some cases, it even limits what you can hunt, or if you can hunt at all depending on your species. For example, something like Quetzalcoatlus is basically turned into a scavenger or support style creature, unable to properly hunt anything larger or even equal to it in many cases, only allowed to take smaller prey. It removes a lot of natural gameplay freedom and replaces it with a rulebook disguised as realism. All of the Crimson servers are full of the same kind of crybaby players, very similar to AISMR. They group up, overwhelm people, and then act like they earned something. On top of that, the chat environment is one of the worst parts. It's extremely Karen-fied. Everything you say gets picked apart, questioned, and analyzed like you're being put on trial for every sentence. You can't just play the game and talk normally without someone trying to correct you, report you, or twist what you said into something else. It creates this constant feeling that you're being watched, and it kills any sense of casual play. Adults with Jobs is a server that, from my experience, leans heavily into weird nesting and roleplay behavior. There's a lot of focus on interactions that go beyond normal gameplay, and it gets uncomfortable fast. I called it out in global chat once and got instantly banned. I waited for the ban to expire, came back, said again that it's still weird to have virtual dinosaur sex in Path of Titans, and got banned permanently. Sastray Island is more of the same kind of environment, but somehow even more strict about it. It leans hard into that same style of roleplay and community control, but with even less tolerance for anyone questioning it. You either go along with it, or you're out. Heisla Leviathan follows that same pattern. It presents itself as structured and immersive, but in reality, it's just another server where certain behaviors are normalized, and any pushback gets shut down quickly. It ends up feeling less like a game and more like a controlled environment where you're expected to act a certain way at all times. Aurania Realism is similar, but tries to soften it by calling itself light. In practice, it still carries the same issues. There are still expectations on how you should behave, how you should play, and what you should say, and stepping outside of that gets you attention from admins fast. Dynasty Realism continues that trend. It's another server where realism is used as a reason to enforce strict behavior, but instead of improving the experience, it just limits how people can actually enjoy the game. It ends up feeling restrictive rather than immersive. Islander semi-realism is no different. It has the same underlying issues as the others, just presented slightly differently. You still have that same controlled atmosphere, the same types of players, and the same lack of tolerance for anything outside their preferred playstyle. Arazoa Adapted Realism. If you thought realism was bad, wait until you get a load of adapted realism. Remember when I mentioned armchair dinosaur paleontologists in my last review? This is exactly that, turned up to the maximum. Everything is hyperanalyzed. How you move, how you fight, how you interact. All of it gets judged against someone's idea of what is correct. It stops being about playing the game and turns into trying not to break someone else's interpretation of realism. Combined with strict oversight and a community that reinforces it, it becomes exhausting to deal with over time. Now for the final part, AISMR, the Land Before Time server. This is a very new server, and as of this video, it's only about 2 weeks old. I'm semi-part of the community, meaning I'm not in the Discord, but I've still spent enough time on the server itself to get a clear idea of how it runs. I'm saving this server for last for a reason. It only has one rule, and that rule is simple. Do not group with anything outside of your species. meaning a T-Rex cannot help a raptor, and you cannot interfere with a fight once it has started, as that directly breaks the only rule in place. However, once a fight is fully over, you are allowed to step in and take out any remaining survivors. That alone creates a very clear structure to how combat flows, without overcomplicating things with pages of restrictions. They also have a scoreboard system for both questing and kills. So there is still progression and competition, but it is tracked in a way that actually feels like a competition, and not just everyday dino slaughterfest. The server is not strictly PvP focused, but PvP is heavily encouraged alongside PvE gameplay such as exploring, role-playing, and completing quests. It creates a mix where you're not forced into one playstyle, but you are also not punished for engaging in combat either. It is run by a micro-streamer named AISMR, who streams for long hours consistently. I found the server by accident through the stream, and just from that initial experience, I ended up spending time on the server itself. And I'm going to be honest, I've had more fun on this server than on any server with 100 players or more. Not because it's chaotic or overloaded with systems, but because of how simple the structure is, and how consistently it is enforced. There is no confusion about what is allowed and what isn't, and that alone makes a massive difference in gameplay quality. Additional note, the smaller player count also helps a lot. A 50-slot server means encounters feel more meaningful. You're not constantly drowning in random third parties, and fights feel more deliberate instead of chaotic noise. When you win or lose, it actually feels like it mattered, instead of just being another random death in a crowded server. So if you want a good, logical server with clear structure and consistent rules, this is the server for you. It's a 50-slot server, so I'm hoping this video brings more people over and gives them something to compete in on AISMR's scoreboard. And that ends this video. And remember, if you're upset about anything I said, just remember, it's my fucking opinion. Have a nice day.